Okay, good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon to our colleagues from the different constituent universities of UP and from other institutions who are here in the Zoom room and those joining us in the YouTube channel. As of last Friday, we actually had 1,250 registrants. And given the limitation in the number of slots in the webinar, we are also live via YouTube. The link to this can be found in the chat box. So if we have colleagues who were not able to join us in the Zoom room, kindly please share this link to the others. I just want to check my audio. Can I be heard? Is my audio clear? Thank you. So I'm Vanji Amor, and I'm streaming from inside UP campus where I reside. Wherever you are, I hope that you are all safe and well. Welcome to this webinar on copyright organized by the System Committee on Remote Learning in cooperation with the UP Diliman Integrated School and the UP Diliman Computer Center. The event is being recorded and a video will be shared at a later date. Should there be technical glitches and the webinar is interrupted, you will receive an email on rescheduling. Should I get disconnected, AVP Alisa Alampay will take over until I resolve my issue and rejoin you. I will be your moderator in the Zoom webinar room, assisted by Ms. Kai Cardos. AVP Elisa will be the moderator in the YouTube channel, assisted by Ms. Dax Valdez and Ms. Rita Santos. For those in the Zoom room, please use the chat box for comments and the Q&A panel for questions. For those in the YouTube channel, you can type in your questions and comments in the chat box. In the Zoom room, should someone ask a similar question to yours, you can click the thumbs up icon to upvote that question. Questions with more likes or upvotes rise to the top of the Q&A panel, making it more likely to be seen and get asked live. Other panelists also have the option of answering your questions by typing the answers in the Q&A panel in the Zoom room and chat box in the YouTube channel, so watch out for that. To optimize the time for the open forum, we will first ask questions from the Q&A panel and chat box of the Zoom room and YouTube channel respectively. Should you feel the need to ask your question verbally, please click the raise hand button in the participant panel. Time permitting, I will then unmute you and give you 1 minute to ask your question. So I must say that this webinar is very timely, coming just right after the online course Redesign 101, that gave us the 6-step guide in course pack preparation for remote learning. This course remains open and available in the UVLE of UP Diliman, VLE of UP Manila, and ELBI of UP Los Baños. Then just last Thursday and this morning, we had the sharing of teacher Portia Padilla of the UP Diliman College of Education on how she prepared her course pack following the 6-step guide. Thank you to UP Diliman for organizing this and to teacher Portia for generously sharing the course pack that she prepared. She mentioned that if there is anything in her course pack that we find we can use in our course pack preparation, we are most welcome to it, so long as we give proper attribution. The objective of this webinar is to address questions on copyright that the faculty raised in the CU-wide dialogues and in the consultation sessions of Course Redesign 101, as well as those raised in the webinar of teacher Portia. The other objective of the webinar is to provide guidance to the faculty in their course pack preparation mindful of copyright, so as to avoid infringement, most especially in the selection and curation of learning resources. Questions and discussions in this webinar will inform the copyright guidelines that is being drafted with the help of colleagues from the UP College of Law. Let me now introduce our panelists. Our resource person who will be sharing her expertise on copyright is Ms. Agnes May Bantigue of the UP Diliman Technology Transfer and Business Development Office. She will give a 45-minute talk, after which we will have a 5-minute break that will be followed by the open forum. Joining us in the open forum are other panelists as resource persons. Dr. Luis Sison, Director of the System TTBDO, joined by Mr. Cedric Gallares and Ms. Idona Marie Palatao. The University Librarian of UP Diliman, Mr. Chito Angeles, and Dr. Patricia Arinto, our UPOU resource person. She is the current Dean of UP Visayas Tacloban and a member of the System Committee on Remote Learning. With us also in the panel is Ms. Charmaine Guerrero from UPIS. Without further ado, let me now introduce our speaker. As the Innovation and Technology Support Office Manager of UP Diliman and the team leader of the UP Diliman TTBDO, Ms. Agnes has been working as IP and Technology Transfer Officer in the university for the past 8 years. She is mainly responsible for ensuring IP protection and technology transfer of faculty and researchers' outputs. She was also a senior lecturer at the College of Engineering, teaching an elective course on intellectual property. She serves as resource speaker in various IP and technology transfer seminars both in and outside of the university. After obtaining her BS Business Economics degree from UP Diliman, Agnes worked as an account officer in a local commercial bank prior to joining the technology transfer profession in UP. She then pursued and obtained her MBA degree from UP. She also obtained a Master of Laws in Intellectual Property degree from the University of Turin, Italy, supported by a scholarship from the same university and from the World Intellectual Property Organization. Colleagues and guests, let us please welcome Ms. Agnes Bantique.
Thank you, AVP Vanji, and thank you for the nice introduction. I'd also like to thank our AVPs and of course, VP Bautista, who's attending as an attendee during this webinar. So again, I'd like to emphasize that the objective really of this webinar is to, for us to be mindful when we are developing our course packs, to be mindful of the rights that the copyright owners have over their materials. So I've already read some questions regarding fair use, so we will touch upon that topic during the lecture and hopefully expound more during the Q&A. So without further ado, I'd like to start my presentation. There. So I'd like to ask AVP Amor, minsan po kasi nag-intermittent yung connection ko. If you missed anything, please let me know so I can repeat myself.
Okay.
So just yes, thank you.
Thank you.
AVP Vanji. So just to discuss maybe a background on this webinar. Actually, I was initially invited by the UP Integrated School by Ms. Cha Guerrero to deliver this webinar, but over the course, the OVPAA realized there's a need to discuss this sa buong UP system, to all UP system faculty. So actually the content evolved. Even last week, we were still discussing with the UP College of Law lawyers. So I'd like to also acknowledge our UP College of Law, some of the top IP lawyers in the country, si Attorney Susan Villanueva, Attorney JJ Dicini, and Attorney Ferdy Fider, of course, with Dean Deng. So I'd like to acknowledge some of the content here actually was guided by them. So first, let's go to the definition, the very basic definition of copyright. So a copyright defined is, according to the EU IPO teaching kit, it's your legal intangible property which grants certain rights to the creator or creators of an original work for a limited period of time. So you have to note that copyright is distinct from the embodiment of a work. So you can have a textbook which has many copies. So each of us can have a copy of that textbook, and we can, as owner of that embodiment of the work, we can resell our textbooks. But as the copyright owner, the publisher maybe, he would have the sole right to make the reproductions of the work. So that's why you're not technically allowed to photocopy entire books. So we make that distinction because this is very important. This definition also has three major parts. So I will discuss them one by one. It's imperative that I discuss muna first, what is the subject matter of copyright? So what is the work? What works are covered by copyright? And when we determine kung subject matter ba siya ng copyright, then we go on to ask, what is considered original? Kasi originality is a key concept in copyright. In the Philippines, actually, it's very, originality is, wala pa kasing case law, so it's very simple. And then when we determine that a work is covered by copyright and has originality, then we go on to discuss what are the rights of the owner or what are the copyrights attached to it. Okay, so I will be citing the IP code a lot because I'll be discussing lang yung foundation. So you have a basic knowledge. You are mindful of the copyrights. Okay, so let's move to subject matter. So here we will answer the questions, what can be protected by copyright and what cannot be protected. Kasi may limitations din naman yung copyright. It's not absolute. So in the IP code, in section 172, we have literary and artistic works, which are protected from the moment of creation by the sole fact of their creation. So that means that the moment you recite a poem or you sing a song, regardless if you captured it on video or you upload the lyrics on maybe your blog, it is protected automatically by copyright by the sole fact of their creation. So it's also protective irrespective of mode or form of expression. Like I said, you don't have to, if it's a work that is delivered by speech, then it doesn't have to be in a recorder. It doesn't have to be recorded. So irrespective of expression, content, quality, or purpose. Next, you have your derivative works, which is covered under section 173. So let's move first to literary and artistic works. So the copyright, the IP code actually lists examples of what is covered by copyright. Anong types of original intellectual creations yung pwedeng makover ng copyright. So these shall include, of course, you have your literary works, which is your books, pamphlets, articles, and other writings, periodicals and newspapers. Ayun, so lectures, sermons, addresses, dissertations prepared for oral delivery, whether or not they are reduced in writing or other material form. Letters, of course, so if you write someone, kung may pen pal ka, or if you write someone an email, that would be considered copyrightable material. Dramatic or dramatico-musical composition, so you have your plays or your musicals. Of course, you also have your choreographic works. So yung mga sinasayaw siguro ng UP Street, yung cheer dance, yung mga cheer dance steps natin, these can be covered by copyright. Musical compositions with or without words. So yung mga pop songs natin with words, and then yung mga classical music natin without words. So both are covered. Illustrations, maps, plans, sketches, charts, 3D works relative to geography, topography, architecture, or science, and yung drawings or plastic works of a scientific or technical character. So this just covers yung mga, although they are scientific in nature, meron silang expression, di ba? So when you illustrate a map, a topographical map, meron silang expression. So these are still maybe considered as copyrightable works. Yung second one, which is drawings or plastic works, I would say these are the models. So kasi di ba minsan sa science, we have, lalo na sa mga grade school, you have models of the human body or kung ano yung mga atoms, molecules. Photographic works, of course, digital or analog, both are covered. And same for cinematographic works. So yung mga films, teleserye, this would be covered. You also have your pictorial illustrations and advertisements. So yung nakikita natin sa mga TVC, yung mga TVC, pag-break sa TV. And then of course, yung mga nasa Facebook, yung ads. Computer programs, so these are considered literary and artistic works under our IP code. So in some countries, computer software is actually patentable, but in the Philippines, these are only covered by copyright. Of course, you have in section 172.1, you would have your catch-all provision, which says other literary, scholarly, scientific, and artistic works. Kasi in fact, because of technology, you really can't keep up with what are the new works that can be covered by copyright. So they put this in the IP code. So other countries would have that too. So again, just to remind you, these works are protected from the moment of creation by the sole fact of their creation, and regardless kung ano yung form of expression nila. And again, stemming from the fact that they are protected from the moment or creation, it doesn't matter if they are published or unpublished, as long as they come in an expression. Okay, so that's it for section 172, which covers our literary and artistic works. Next, we have the derivative works, which is self-explanatory. It just means it was based on an original work. Maybe it's not yours, maybe it's yours. So these are protected by copyright. And here are some of the derivative types of derivative work. So they classified it into, first is yung, you would call this alterations. So you have your dramatizations, translations, adaptations, abridgments of literary and artistic works. So some examples would be novels or books, which you turn into films. So The Lord of the Rings would be an example. Translations of books, so No Limit Angere. The translation would merit a separate copyright from the original work. Musical arrangement. So narinig nyo kanina while we were waiting to start, there was a song being played of music being played yung UP Naming Mahal. So there can be different musical arrangements for a song. You can have it for chorale, you can have it for strings, and then you can have it for kalimba. So the next classification for derivative work would be your collections. So collections of literary and artistic works, compilations of data, and these have to be original by reason of selection or coordination or arrangement of their contents. So what does that mean? When you say original kasi, i-discuss ko siya mamaya, pero when you say original kasi, there has to be some labor put into it by the author. So for example, if you make yung telephone book, kung naaalala nyo yung Yellow Pages dati, so they just arrange the numbers alphabetically, the businesses alphabetically. So you would consider that these are probably not original kasi inarrange lang niya alphabetically. So what examples would be considered original? So if you have a directory of, instead of alphabetically arranging them, you choose only the best services, say in, kunyari in Quezon City. What are the top 10 restaurants in Quezon City? So that would be considered as original. A list of the best short stories of 2011. So yung short stories na to, they can be owned by different, the copyright can be owned by different people, but you compiled them and put them in the book, maybe. So the book, the compilation would be eligible for a separate copyright protection. So same for others, if you make a compilation of greatest news photos, academic journals. So yung academic journals, may mga nagko-contribute ng articles dyan, di ba? So the copyright, there is a copyright individually to the works, to the articles, but there's also a separate copyright for the collection, which is the academic journal. Okay, these works, which are your alterations, tsaka yung collections, they are protected as new works. And it shall not, yung new copyright, it shall not affect the force of any subsisting copyright upon the original work, and shall not be construed to imply any right to such use of the original works or extend the copyright. So what does that mean? Yun nga, hindi maapektuhan. It doesn't mean that if you compile your works, you have different short stories, for example, mag-expire na sila tomorrow, and you compile them, hoping that you can extend the copyright to those short stories. Hindi ganon. You only create copyright for the compilation, so it does not affect the force of the copyright of the original work. And then the second one, even if you make a compilation book of the best short stories in 2011, it does not imply that you obtain permission. So you still need to obtain permission from the individual copyright holders of the short stories. So you still have to get clearance from the copyright owner. So okay, those are the two classifications of work that will be covered by copyright or are subject matter of copyright. So literary and artistic works, and then you have your derivative works. Now, the IP code also discusses what is unprotected subject matter, and these are included in section 175. So any idea, procedure, system, method, or operation, concept, discovery, even if they are expressed, explained, or illustrated or embodied in a work, these are not subject matter of copyright. So what would be an example? So merong time na a few years ago that there were a lot of films na paulit-ulit yung theme. So it's about having an affair or a third party. So laging may married couple, tas may third party. So that idea cannot be copyrighted kasi there can be different expressions of that story. So you can have yung wife yung may third party, yung husband yung may third party. So only the expressions of the work, kasi you can express this very differently and have like small differences in the plot. So these expressions are copyrightable, pero yung idea in itself is not copyrightable. Another thing would be procedures. These can be subject matter for patent, pero not necessarily for copyright. Okay. Discovery or principle. So if I discovered maybe kunyari yung law of gravity, no one can copyright that because it's a fact. Another thing that's unprotected is news of the day and other miscellaneous facts because they are mere items of press information. So example, yung news na Philippines is now #1 in terms of COVID-19 cases, no one can claim copyright over that because that's news, that's fact, or at least we consider it as fact. So anyone can report it because they are for information only. Any official text of legislative, administrative, or legal nature, so yung executive orders, memos, these are not subject matter of copyright. 176 also says that works of the government cannot be copyrighted. Pero may exceptions naman dyan. If you want to commercialize the copyright na, hindi naman, a work na ginawa ng government, you still have to ask for permission. Pero in essence, they are public domain that you can redistribute. Okay, so we did discuss ano yung subject matter ng copyright and then yung hindi pwedeng i-copyright. Once we determine that a work falls under the literary and artistic work or derivative work, then we need to know, is this original? So what is originality ba? Like I mentioned kanina, wala pang case law, I think, in the Philippines. Pero this is a key concept in copyright. So you need to be mindful of this. So basically, copyright, although we will discuss the rights later, it's simply put the right to prevent others from copying. So ang history kasi ng copyright is, I'm not sure kung saang country, pero nasa 1400s, I think. The government or the crown wanted to control the information going around. So they didn't want books to be published by intellectuals. So ang ginawa nila, okay, you have the Printers Guild. You are the only people or the only presses who can publish the books para in favor dun sa monarchy or sa crown. So that's the history of copyright. It's simply granting a right to produce copies of books. So simply put, it's the right to prevent others from copying. Of course, this evolved na because we have technological advancement. So if that is copyright, simply put, originality means it's not a copy or you did not copy it anywhere, or it is independent creation. Okay, since we established what originality is, or at least the minimum requirement for originality, let's move to the rights granted under copyright. So just to reiterate lang, it's granted to creator of an original work. It covers published and unpublished, as long as they are fixed or tangible in form. And it automatically attaches from the moment of creation. So you have two bundle of rights when it comes to copyright. First is the copyright itself or the economic rights. So usually dito ka nagme-maintain ng revenue stream. The second one is more personal to the author. So Section 177 lists the rights that are exclusive to the owner. So the owner can carry out, authorize, or prevent the following acts. So you have reproduction, yung making copies of the work, transformation. So that means if you want to transform a work, you still have to get permission. So the others here would be specific to yung mga drama, music, fine arts. Pero so we would focus on, for materials, I guess, in course packs, we would focus on reproduction kasi ang goal is to share materials to our students that they can use in learning. So we're particular on the reproduction or other communication to the public. So just briefly, yung handouts pala, I already made the folder public, or if not, I'll do it after this. So this is the term of protection. You can view it from the handouts. And then Section 193 discusses the moral rights. So some cases, or in most countries, the work is considered an extension of the personality of the author. So they are granted moral rights. In some countries, kasi bawal siya i-assign. In the Philippines, binasa ko yung IP code, parang pwedeng i-assign ng moral rights. I don't know to what extent. So the moral rights are to be attributed, so to require that the author be attributed in the work, which is understandable, to make alterations or the right of alteration. So paulit-ulit nating sinasabi na even if you're making a derivative work, you still have to ask the permission of the author. To maintain the integrity of the work, dahil nga extension siya ng personality, in some cases, extension siya ng personality of the author, para mo na ring dinidishonor yung author or yung painter, yung artist, if you destroy the work or if you distort the work. So the right to object to these derogatory actions. And of course, to restrain the use of his name with respect to any work not of his own creation or in a distorted version of his work. So baka kasi dinistort yung work tapos i-attach pa rin na ito yung author niyan. So he can restrain the use of his name in those cases. Okay, now that we know the rights under copyright, we would like to know, are there limitations and exceptions? So absolute ba ang copyright? Kailangan hindi ba talaga pwede gawin yung mga acts na yun? So not everything that is a literary and artistic work is covered by copyright. So we already discussed these, yung ideas, works of the government. These are not covered by copyright. Pero hindi rin naman absolute ang copyright. There are exceptions, pero ang general rule kasi the author has copyright. So you have to consider some factors when you are parang invoking these exceptions. So there's a number of acts listed in 184.1. I just highlighted the ones that might be relevant to in relation to an educational setting. So you have B, which is making quotations from a public work if they are compatible with fair use and dapat justified yung purpose. So you will be required to cite the author or source. So example would be when we write our research papers, quotations lang naman yung kinukuha natin, hindi naman natin ini-incorporate yung entire work, and then we still cite. So that's allowed under 184.1. So another would be 184.1E, which is inclusion of a work if the inclusion is made by way for illustration or teaching purposes and is compatible with fair use. Citation required ulit dyan. 184.1I naman is public performance or communication to the public of a work. Pag walang admission fee or hindi naman siya for profit and for educational purpose only. So hindi siya for profit. Example would be when sa College of Music, when you finish, nag piano lessons ako dati dyan eh. Pero hindi ako nag-recital. Pero yun, yung recital. So, maybe voice yung class mo and you're asked to perform something for your recital as a final requirement. So, since hindi naman siya for profit, hindi siya mako-consider as infringing on the work. So, it can be considered fair use and allowed under this section. Okay, here are some others, but we'll jump to the next. So the provisions of 184.1 shall be interpreted in such a way as to allow the work to be used in a manner which, of course, it does not conflict with the normal exploitation of the work and does not prejudice the right holder's legitimate interest. So sa example natin on the recital, so yung mga music producers kasi, mga production companies kasi, usually they sell their records or they license. Ngayon kasi online na sa Spotify. So that's their main revenue stream. Hindi naman kinokompetensya ng mga college, ng mga music schools, yung mga big music companies na to. So we can argue that the recital, the performance in a recital does not conflict with the normal exploitation of the work. But the key here is that although these are limitations or exceptions that are in the IP code, there are still considerations that we have to think about when invoking these exceptions. So this is especially true for fair use, which I think once or twice nabanggit na dun sa previous section. Fair use is under section 185 of the IP code, and it says that in the following acts, pwede siyang makonsider na fair use and may not constitute as infringement. So what are these acts? Of course, criticism and commenting. So if you're just making a book review, hindi mo naman kasi ini-incorporate yung buong work. News reporting, teaching, scholarship research, and other similar purposes. So again, these acts may be considered as fair use and may be considered as not constituting infringement. Pero there is actually a provision in 185.1 that there are 4 factors to be considered or evaluated or used in evaluating if an act is fair use. So of course, you have the purpose and character of the use. Titingnan mo ba, is it for profit? Is it not? So mostly naman nung sinite kong acts kanina is not really for profit. So nature of the copyrighted work, which goes hand in hand with the purpose. The amount and substantiality of the portion used in relation to the entire work. So dito wala namang percentage na nakalagay dun sa IP code. So we should be really mindful of this. There's no fixed rule on what can be considered as substantial. And the effect of the use upon the potential market. So dahil ba dun sa use na yun, kahit not for profit siya, baka mamaya sobrang na-diminish naman yung value ng work or nawala yung market ng work. So these are just 4 factors. They're in the IP code, but as far as I know, wala pa po yata sa Philippines na case law on using this fair use. So okay, going back dun sa fair use, that's why we really aren't, although we are for wide dissemination of knowledge, it's really difficult then. We were consulting last week with the lawyers, and it's really difficult to say if an act can be, if we can incorporate works and invoke fair use. So good thing na lang they devised, they wrote guidelines yun nga sa UP College of Law. I believe it's still ongoing because it was parang 2 weeks ago lang nung nakausap namin yung lawyers. So it's still ongoing, but rest assured that the OVPAA is on it when developing the guidelines for the course packs. So how do we, now that we know ano yung mga rights or ano yung mga hindi pwedeng gawin or the rights that are reserved to the owners, how do we now incorporate materials, copyrightable materials or copyrighted materials into our course packs? And how do we avoid violations and infringement of rights? So again, for copyrighted materials, you cannot photocopy, copy, or distribute a copy in the course pack. Make a copy of the work available in your course pack, or link to an unauthorized copy appearing on the internet. So kung bawal ito, ano yung mga pwede natin gawin so we can avoid this? So I know it's very limiting, but yun nga, we're trying to, the OVPAA is making guidelines for this. But for now, we will provide you with this very simple guide. So you can use materials that are under the public domain. So these would be your government works or those with expired copyright. So dun sa isang slide, we already mentioned yung period of copyright protection. You can go back to them. Another type of work you can release is those that are under share alike or copyleft, Creative Commons license. Some of you might be familiar, or other similar license. So what is this copyleft and Creative Commons? So copyleft just means it's type of an open license, which is the practice of granting the right to freely distribute. So you can use the work, reuse the work, you can modify it, pero you have to share alike. So that means you have to share that work, that the derivative work, in the same way. Ika-copyleft mo rin siya. So usually nangyayari ito sa software development. So developers, yun nga, the famous licenses would be GNU General Public License, and then you have your Creative Commons. Bakit ito ginagawa ng developers? So they want, the underlying principle behind this is that anyone can benefit from the work, and then walang dapat manlamang. So walang pwedeng, dahil open to all naman siya, wag na nang pagkakitaan yung copyright. So that's the principle behind copyleft. For Creative Commons, it's a type of copyleft. It's a more specific type of copyleft item. It's by an American nonprofit organization. So gusto nila i-distribute yung usually creative works, making it more available to more people. So there are 6 licenses under Creative Commons, and they have 4 elements. So each element is represented by a symbol. So first you have your by or by. Capital kasi siya, kaya hindi ko sure kung paano siya i-pronounce. So just means that credit must be given to the author. If I'm not mistaken, in all the CC licenses, this is included. So you always have to give credit to the author. The next one is the share alike. So parang may undo button siya. So it just means you have to share under the same terms. Non-commercial, NC, which means only non-commercial purposes. So bawal mong ibenta yung derivative work. And then the last element would be no derivative. So you have to use the work as is. So they made different combinations of the CC licenses to create the 6 CC licenses. So basically, each license allows reusers to copy and distribute the material in any medium, provided there is attribution, subject to the following restrictions. So pag-buy, yun yung pinaka malawak kasi kailangan mo lang i-cite. Buy, share alike, it means you have to license the work under the same terms. So it's very, once you have an idea of each element, madali na siyang intindihin yung each of the licenses. So this is also in the handout. So ayun, again, without asking for permission from anyone, you can use works in the public domain, and you can use works released under these open licenses. But of course, it's very limiting if you will just be using these works. So what about the works that don't fall under these? Okay, this guide again was prepared by the OVPAA with the help of the UP System TTBDO and the UP College of Law. So how can you include a copyrighted material in your course pack? Of course, for published works, if you want to include them maybe a textbook, although medyo mahirap yun sa textbook kasi publisher, you have to secure permission from the copyright holder. So usually for published works, may publisher yan. So hindi yung author yung lalapitan nyo, but look for the publisher. For unpublished works, then you secure permission from the author. And last, if the authorized copy is available on the internet, you may provide a direct link to your students. So bakit kailangan yung link yung ipoprovide nyo? Do not download and re-upload because this can be considered, in some countries, it has been considered as making a copy of the work. So kahit na sabihin nyo na ay, available naman siya sa Google, yun nga, available naman siya sa Google, so it's better to provide a direct link to the work. So the same goes, we have subscribed to journals. I believe the university has subscriptions to the journals. So students would technically have access to these, so provide the link. I know there is concern on what about those who cannot access online? Paano kung wala silang internet or mahina yung internet? So we've discussed this with the OVPAA, and they are working on providing for those who cannot access these works. I believe also the library is sila Sir Chito. They are working on reviewing the licenses that we have with publishers to see if medyo liberal sila on that, and we can take advantage of that. And for those na may restrictions talaga, of course, the university will be securing permission for the students, so no one gets left behind. Okay, I'm at the end. So just to summarize, of course, I use works in the public domain. There will be no problem if you use these works. Works released under open licenses, wala ring problema. If a legitimate copy exists online, directly link to them in your course pack. And of course, pinaka-important, if you can secure permission from the copyright owner for published works, it might not be the author, then this is the best option talaga. You will find that, I tried this may kinopyright kaming module before kay Dr. Tapang sa physics. They used images. I had to check each and every image in the book and secure permission from them. So you would find na, siguro mas madali for pictures, no? Pero you would find that some copyright owners are actually more than willing to let you use the work. So give it a try, securing permission, and I'm sure the OVPAA is working on this, on providing more guidelines for us to be able to create our course packs. So that ends my presentation. And again, I'd like to acknowledge the OVPAA, the system, TTBDO, UP College of Law, UPD OVCRD, where the TTBDO is under, and the UPIS because they actually initiated this. So thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you. Salamat, Miss Agnes. Thank you very much. Okay, so sabi natin after the presentation, we'll have a very short break. Medyo mag-stretch na konti. So we'll have a 5-minute break. So we'll come back for the Q&A at 2:50 p.m. So maybe si Miss Agnes can also, just take a break and then drink some water. Sorry, walang mapadalang water dyan. Yeah, so 5 minutes break, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you very much. Good afternoon once more. So we're now opening our Q&A portion, our open forum. I see 4 raised hands. So before I call those who raised their hands, let me first ask the questions from the Q&A panel and then pass on to AVP Elisa so we can ask the questions that are raised from the YouTube channel. Okay, so here in the Q&A panel, there's a question on the most upvoted question from Ma'am Alexis Eric Almocera. There are some educational YouTube videos that are not explicitly licensed under Creative Commons. Hence, they default to a YouTube license. Can we still legally use these videos and how? So, Ma'am Agnes, Miss Agnes, you want to respond to that?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, I did a quick search on the standard YouTube license, and it seems that as long as yung standard YouTube license means that you are granting the broadcasting rights to YouTube. So, assuming that the person who uploaded the video has authorization or has the authority to grant that license to YouTube, then yes, you can actually share that. It's a type of an open license as long as you link, again, as long as you link directly to the YouTube. So there, yung UPA system TTVDO, I think might suggest yung embedding the video mismo, but a direct link will suffice. So, ayun.
Okay, thank you. The next question is from Sir Jovencio Hubert Abalos. If free use allows us to use copyrighted material for educational purposes, why then are we not allowed to include photocopies of portions of these in our course packs? How else can we give a copy for our students to use?
Actually, medyo tricky question kasi siya. So although fair use is in our IP code, kung maalala mo AVP Banji, even the UP lawyers were not in agreement kung kung ipopromote nga ba itong fair use. Kasi it really depends on the interpretation, and wala pa tayong case law really. So it's difficult to invoke fair use. So actually, kaya hindi siya ine-encourage. Although we understand naman the need to provide, kasi nga, UP is for wider access to public education or to knowledge. So we don't want anyone left behind. Pero we're just being cautious, if I'm not mistaken. OVPA also would like us to be cautious na we do not infringe on anyone's rights. So the best really is to get permission from the publisher or the author. Baka po ma'am may idadagdag po sila UP system.
Okay, Sir Louis, you want to add to that?
Very good.
Okay daw. Okay. Sige, siguro connected to that question is the question from Sir Nathaniel Yang. No, so he's saying that I hope that the issue of maximizing the fair usage of copyrighted material, such as medical book chapters and journal articles in the context of using them for educational purposes for UP medical students, will be addressed in this. I remember one of the questions then na na-raise sa webinar ni Teacher Portia is, so yung question nga na if there is a journal article that is going to be included in the course pack to which we subscribe to, so can the faculty do that?
Yeah, so best way is to directly link to it. Pero yun nga, you may provide, let's wait for the full guidelines. Pero ang best way is to provide a direct link. Pero I'm sure the OVPAA is working on the more specific guidelines kung pwede nga bang i-download and i-re-upload yung journal articles, and even for those who do not have online access to actually reproduce in hard copy yung mga articles.
Okay, thank you, Miss Agnes. Maybe Sir Chito can maybe share what the library is, the efforts of the library here in relation to the question on can the university help in securing licenses from large publishers? From Sir Perry Neil Fernandez, and connected to this is the question of Ma'am Jofe Cadiz. Can we include in our course pack, printed in USB, the whole sample chapter of a book made available online by the publisher? So, Sir Chito, you want to share kung ano yung efforts natin sa university library related to this?
Well, currently, dun sa discussion nga with the lawyers, we are trying to consolidate all the terms of agreement with the publishers. So later we will try to request the publishers for siguro para maging more permissible yung terms dun sa licensing, so that we could allow reproduction nga of copyrighted works. At the moment sa library, we limit the reproduction. So kung merong request, of course we follow the fair use principle. For as long as hindi substantial, we allow reproduction. No? Pag more than that yung request of the faculty or the students, then we just encourage them to borrow the book, the physical book. And kung gusto nilang i-reproduce yun, then that's already beyond our control.
Yeah, so I guess yung isang follow-up question dun, Sir Chito, is what is substantial?
Yun nga, wala kasing specific percentage or figure na naka-indicate sa fair use. So where other libraries abroad, like in the US, they practice like 10%, 20% of the, let's say, number of pages. So we're actually silent about it kasi nga wala kaming specific na basis na, until such time that UP is able to come up with the guidelines. But we just tell our users that we have to limit the reproduction. So sometimes, or most often, we use 10% to be on the safe side. 10% of the entire book, for instance. So maybe a chapter or two of a book. So ganun lang po muna until we have a clearer guidelines.
Okay, thank you, Sir Chito. So I guess that also responds to the question of Sir Edgar Belda, no? Kasi he asked, is including just chapters of a copyrighted textbook in the course packs not considered fair use? As mentioned by Sir Chito and Ms. Agnes, yeah, so we're actually coming up with the guidelines. We're finalizing this with the help of our colleagues from UP College of Law, so that we become, more clear about when we can be under fair use. And as mentioned by Sir Nathaniel Yang, how can we maximize fair use, no, in the preparation of our course packs? Okay, so the question from Miss Gurley, Ma'am Gurley Navarro: how do you determine if the copy of work found in the internet is a legitimate or authorized copy of work?
So ganun din po, ma'am. I think meron related question dito. If it is the publisher or the author, if it comes from the website of the publisher or the author, then most likely it's a legitimate or authorized copy. Merong question dito that one of the may publisher daw na nag-upload nung sample nung chapter. So in that case, since yung publisher mismo yung nag-upload, that would be considered as a legitimate source of the work.
Okay, thank you. From Sir Mark Louis Luge, if an office in UP Diliman publishes a scholarly publication, does it fall under the exceptions for copyright, particularly is it considered government works? And an additional question from Mr. Noel Feria is, where is the boundary of academe and government when it comes to copyright?
There is yun nga, concern on whether the university can own copyright kasi nga it's under the IP code. The government of the Philippines cannot own copyright. In some cases kasi pwedeng i-assign ng author sa university yung work. So pwede naman i-accept. In that case, exemption siya. So magkakaroon ng copyright na hinahawakan si university. So I guess we should take a look. Did the author assign his publication to the university, as in may deed of assignment? And in that case, then kailangan magpaalam kay university. Although in this case, I think yung university, I don't know, pero usually since we're in the same organization, we can share the work naman, and it does not prejudice naman the rights of the university when it comes to, kasi we're for promoting knowledge and education. So in this case, when you share the work to your students, you're in line with the mission of the university.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Agnes. Maybe we can go to the YouTube channel. Ma'am Alisa, you want to ask questions coming from our colleagues and guests from the YouTube channel?
Yes, hello, good afternoon. There were some questions on, so it's clear already there were some questions earlier kasi about an entire book being used, no? So I think that's very clear na you cannot really use the book if it's not allowed, no? Yung 100%. Pero may mga nagtatanong, yung PowerPoint daw that comes with these textbooks, are they allowed to distribute them to the students or put them in their course packs?
Yeah, I think these PowerPoints, if I'm not mistaken, are to aid the lecturer in education, in teaching and education. So I would, ang tingin ko po dyan, ang opinion ko is they are allowed to share it. I'm not sure if the others would have the same opinion.
Some of them, go ahead, please.
Yeah, wouldn't there be explicit instructions about yung PowerPoints, yung presentations na yan nakasama? So I agree with Agnes. I would think that that's their parang they would prefer. Paano ba yan? That's the shareable component. Diba? Kasi it also draws revenue kasi people will get attracted and might want to buy the book if they see the presentation. So, and I would hope that there are instructions about the distribution of those presentations.
Yeah, unless explicitly stated, no, that they can.
Otherwise,
Yeah, okay. Can I still continue, AVP Vanji?
Go ahead, please.
There's also, of course, a question on the uploading of the teacher's own PowerPoint lectures from Zenny Boho in YouTube. How can it be protected? Do I need to apply for a copyright for it? Yung PowerPoint lectures daw niya na in-upload niya sa YouTube. Paano daw yun?
Agnes, can I speak? Kasi actually yung ina-upload natin sa YouTube, I think for ease of access din, di ba? Sometimes it's easier for students to access on YouTube rather than if it's in a VLE. So if you don't want it to be widely available to just anyone, you parang unlisted siya dapat na, di ba, private site mo siya, and then you give the link to it only to your students so that they are, I think Agnes's presentation says they are protected already. May copyright ka na doon kasi trabaho mo yun eh. Ang question na lang ay protecting them from being disseminated just like that, I guess. So yeah, you put it in an unlisted YouTube site. Is one possibility.
There's also a question about, incorporating materials with watermarks already of the original owner. Do you still need to get the permission of the copyright owner to use these watermark materials? Or in relation to that also, that was Professor Manuel's question, but also Professor Palis also asked, if you already got the author's permission, do you still have to ask permission from the publisher? No? So I guess two things. The watermark material, can I include it freely in my course pack? And the other one is, if I already have author permission, do I still need to ask the publisher?
So, dun sa publisher, ma'am, punta ko dun sa second question muna. You have to check kasi who owns the rights. So, most likely kasi the author would have given the publisher absolute rights. So, either through transfer or exclusive license. So, if ganun kasi, the publisher has the absolute rights to make reproduction of the work. So in that case, it's the publisher that you need to ask permission from. So, iyon. For the first question on the watermark, I think, hindi ko po alam kung anong context nito, no? Pero iniisip ko kasi for images na may watermark naman, since na-attribute naman, obviously wala ka namang, ang isang concern kasi on copyright is plagiarism. So you clearly show the source of the work. Pero again, it's better if you also put the direct link. If you're kunyari incorporating it in a presentation like I did, I put the direct link. So it's still better that way. So I think pwede naman po as long as it's not for commercial purposes and you put the source.
Okay, in the same way also that if you have like pictures daw, or illustrations that you put in your PowerPoint materials, it's part of your course pack. I cited the direct link or use APA style of referencing. Do I still have to secure permission from the publisher or the author? This was from Kesh Tingson.
Okay. Buti na lang na dinagdag niyo yun, ma'am. To add lang doon, it's okay to cite, but it's also even better to inform the copyright holder that you are using their work in the course pack. Para lang, if they, pag kunyari ayaw pala nila, then at least you can remove it. Pero at least na-inform mo sila of your intention to use it.
Okay. AVP Banji, baka gusto mong ikaw muna? Marami pa rin ako.
Sige. Okay. Thank you, AVP Elisa. Actually, if I may ask from the chat box, no? So let me just select 3 questions that I saw from the chat box. But in case I miss your questions that you put in the chat box, please just transfer it to the Q&A panel para sure natin na makikita. So from Ma'am Andrea Senyadoza, is it possible to copy literary text from the published books in self-initiative module to be used by the learners, and we just cite the references at the end of the module? Of course, it is for non-profit purposes. Is there any violation committed here? So merong literary text sa published book. I guess parang ano to, diba?
Stories po ba yan?
Fair use, under fair use. Parang merong published book, tapos kukuha siya ng literary text doon sa published book na yon.
Yes. I guess it would still fall under fair use. So, ayun, pwede naman siya. But again, you should, enforce ko lang that it's still, even if you do that, still make an effort to request permission. And if I'm not mistaken, aside from the OVPA is working on sa subscription sa publisher or sa journal, the OVPA is working on parang harmonizing your efforts ng university. I'd also like to add, hindi ko pala na-mention kanina, we actually asked IPOPHIL, I emailed IPOPHIL and asked if they have guidelines for this. Kasi although we can tell you ano yung copyrights, kasi kami more on protection sa TTBDO, ano yung copyrights, ano yung rights ng author. When it comes to enforcement kasi, kaya hindi kami very liberal in saying, okay, that's fair use. Kasi hindi naman kami yung enforcing agency. So I asked the IP Office of the Philippines if they have guidelines. Apparently, they had a consultation last July yata or June with some academic institutions, publishers, and libraries to develop maybe some guidelines on this. We're still waiting on that, and I'm sure they will release these guidelines. But just to share with you that there is an initiative from the government through the IPOFIL and from the publishers. Kasi nga, there is a need really to adapt to these changing times. So lahat naman to tayo nabigla. Pero yun, just to reiterate, it's still better just to avoid any problems in the future. Still, you must ask for permission from the author or the copyright holder.
Okay, thank you. Quick, I think this is a quick question, Ms. Agnes. How long does it take for a material or book to lose its copyright? Or how long does it take for copyright to expire?
I'll just search the specific slide on that and I'll read it out.
Okay, sige.
So
So
the general rule po, ma'am, is for moral rights at least it's 50 years after the death of the last surviving author, if marami sila. For anonymous works or pseudonymous works, hindi mo kilala yung totoong author, it's 50 years from the first lawful publication. For works of applied art, yung mga industrial design, you have 25 years from creation, so mas short siya. Audiovisual works, 50 years from publication. So the right kasi for audiovisual works is not the author kasi it's the one who put it together. And for broadcasts, it's 20 years from broadcast. So these term of protection is actually in the handouts.
Okay, thank you. And then last question from the chat box that I saw is from Ma'am Maria Victoria Altiche. Can we send the digitized copy of thesis and dissertation to our clients, UP students and faculty and researchers from other institutions?
Baka po si Sir Chito. Pero ang thesis and dissertations po kasi is owned by the authors. There are may year na nag-implement from PAEP yung pwedeng i-choose ng author nung gumawa ng thesis kung ano yung pwedeng gawin ng university sa work. So pwede pa niyang i-freely pamigay, kailangan ba i-keep confidential. So may certain restrictions po.
Doc Louie, you want to add to that?
Check the cover. You can have in there. Some theses are, for example, accomplished using industry partner, and we have what we call a limited confidentiality a clause that can be invoked by the authors. No, so always safer to check the first few pages doon naka-indicate doon. But kung wala naman yung ganong restriction, then you can you can provide that to our students.
Okay, thank you, Sir Louis. Sir Chito, you want to add to that?
Yes, in relation to dun sa na-mention ni Ms. Agnes, there's a memo by President Pascual in 2012. So yung mga thesis or dissertation submitted from February 2012, merong classification na yung mga thesis and dissertation. So those that fall dun sa tinatawag na free or open, they can be distributed or shared publicly, except those na merong mga restrictions, like those that are still for publication or for patent application, or those that contain confidential information. So allowed na yung mga thesis na yun. But for those submitted prior to the 2012 memo, wala pa kaming specific guidelines doon. And then in addition, yung mga thesis and dissertations published or submitted 2012 and above, merong university permission page na pinipirmahan yung mga authors. So this is basically a waiver of the copyright to allow the university to share their work. So yun po ang sinusunod namin for now.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sir Chito. Let me now ask a question coming from the Q&A panel from Sir Christian Arans. So you mentioned that we could give links URL to copyrighted works in the internet, for example, in PDF format in our course packs instead of distributing the files. But what about those who have no reliable internet access? Are we not allowed to print those out and send to those who would need hard copies?
Yeah, so, apo ma'am. I think same po siya for the issue on yung journal publications na although may subscription naman si student, baka hindi niya ma-access online. Ang approach po kasi doon is i-request po ng permission. We need to identify anong journal publications yung may restrictions na ganun, and i-request ng publication ng university. So in the same way, better to get at least permission that you will print it. I'm not sure if there will be a centralized office who will be undertaking these. Medyo matrabaho po talaga siya. So magtulungan na lang po tayo. Pero ayun, ideally there's still permission. So just get the clearance, the authority to be printing these materials for your students.
Okay. And then just to reiterate the efforts being done by the library, Sir Chito, please correct me if I'm wrong. So we're actually getting an inventory of all our subscriptions, and then tinitignan natin kung which among these subscriptions will allow us reproduction. And then yung hindi nag-allow ng reproduction based on the end user license agreement, we now request for permission. And then after we get that, therefore we will inform our faculty which of these collections in the library they can use and which they will have to wait for permission for. Tama ba, Sir Chito? Okay.
Correct, ma'am.
So I guess that takes care of that also answers the question of Ma'am Monica Santos, which is if we downloaded the material from the UP Main Live catalog, can we upload this on our class Uvlet page? So I guess, coming from the response of Ms. Agnes, diba? If this material from the UP Mainland catalog is covered by an end user license agreement that allows us reproduction, wala problema. But if not, then as Ms. Agnes was saying, we have to ask permission, and the library will help us here.
Yes.
Okay.
Actually, hindi clear kasi kung ano specific yung na-download. Kasi kung metadata yun, walang copyright restriction. But for full text na copyrighted work, yun yung kailangan ng permission. But otherwise, meron din naman kaming mga open access resources. So walang problem on sharing the full text.
Okay. And the faculty can easily send an email to the library for clarification on this, no, so that they can be guided.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thank you, Sir Chito. Then we also have a question here from, I think, Sir, pasensya na po ha kung hindi ko ma-pronounce ng tama yung pangalan, yung nasa upvoted, Sir Vitruvius Jacobi Bermuda. So he's a guest from, he's a DepEd teacher, a guest of ours, no? As a DepEd teacher, our school's division office requires us to sign a confidentiality agreement regarding modules we are writing. My question involves the legality of this kind of agreement. What are the do's and don'ts of an agreement of such nature? Baka comment lang, Miss Agnes, kasi syempre hindi natin alam ano yung nature nitong sa DepEd, no?
Apo.
I think we cannot comment on the legality.
So yung confidentiality agreement kasi medyo hindi ko sure. Kung siguro deed of assignment, baka masagot ko. Pero for now, hindi ko sure without knowing what's the content of the agreement. Pero sir, if you want, dun sa handouts po, nandun po yung email address ng UP Diliman CHE-CTID. You can send the question there, and if you want, you can send us a copy of the agreement. So we can just take a look at it.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that offer, Miss Agnes. Then a question from Sir Gerard Suarez. Okay. So I guess yung question dun sa can we upload our lectures, exercises, exams in UVLE without violating the copyright issues, medyo na-cover na yan, ano? Also, for our reading materials, we have requested our librarian to scan the books and make available online. Is that okay? Mukhang hindi yata okay yon kasi book na to, no? Tama ba, Ma'am Agnes, Sir Chito? Kasi buong libro. So that means we have to see first. I mean, I guess ang pinaka-ano doon is first see kung ano yung ina-allow ng book publisher na yun with respect to reproduction. Kasi I'm sure, baka meron namang book publishers that allow reproduction. But kung wala, then we have to ask permission. So a follow-up question of Sir Gerard is for the lecture slides or videos and exams, we upload in UVLE for students to access. How do we protect our materials from being copied and sent to other students? They can take pictures of it.
Yeah, so same po. Actually, I think may isa pong last week may nag-discuss na in-upload si AVP Alampay po yata. May nag-upload daw sa Course Hero nung lectures niya. And even ako, meron ako nakita na lecture ko naka-upload sa Course Hero. One thing would be awareness. So the same way that we are doing now. Although siguro yung students hindi pa ganun ka-mindful on this. Pero it's also really on the awareness. And just reminding your students at the start of the course or siguro in one of the orientation slides na they can only use this for personal purposes. So awareness lang din po.
Okay. And then just to, yeah, Ma'am Pat, please, go ahead po.
That's one of the, parang it's a multi-pronged approach. It's not just a question of reminding people what can and cannot be done. And also having a desk or an office that will help get permissions kasi kung madami, di ba, hindi naman pwedeng per faculty member yon, kawawa naman the faculty member. So, and also the library assistants, but also educating our students on correct use of materials, especially copyrighted materials. Kahit hindi copyrighted, I mean, like they always have to cite the source, they cannot be taking photos without permission or scanning without permission. Parang kung ano yung ating tayo, kung anong natututunan natin ngayon, I guess we have to prepare. I think yung mga student support services, we have to prepare guidelines for students that we can distribute and make part of the orientation also.
Yes po, ma'am. Yeah, okay. Sige po, thank you po for that. Ma'am Larissa Gata, can we compile materials into a reader and provide proper citation with links so that students on correspondence mode can actually read such? Ma'am Pat, please.
Definitely, ma'am, kasi ganyan yung well, sorry, I'm incoherent. The short answer is no, you cannot do that without prior permission from each of the publishers and authors or copyright holders for each of those items that you will put in the compilation. So the thing to do is to get permission to do that. Kami sa Open University, merong mga course na merong mga reader. At ganun po yung ginagawa. Meron talaga kaming office na may tao doon sa office na yon na yung trabaho niya ay humingi lang ng permiso doon sa mga nilalagay sa reader. So matagal po yung proseso and some publishers, they will require a fee. Others naman will not. So it's a process that needs to be undertaken.
Okay, so I guess that also answers yung question ni Ma'am Eileen Chong, no? So is it okay to scan to PDF pages from a reference book and email to students kasi distribution pa rin yun. Tama ba? So that means we go by the advice kanina na make sure that we are allowed to distribute. If not, then we ask to be on the safe side, we ask permission. A related question or a related comment to that is from Ma'am Maria Cristina Dancel. For books, we may be allowed to use up to 10% of the material, but none of these can be verbatim. Consequently, we cannot photocopy any page of a book for distribution in our printed course packs or in our classroom LMS. No, so that's a comment from Dancel. So,
Ma'am Banji,
yeah, go ahead.
Oo, merong message si VP Bautista na ine-emphasize nung pinag-usapan natin with the lawyers yung pag-send ng mga hard copies ng mga materials natin, na lahat ito ay limited number lang, limited lang talaga doon sa ating mga students. Tapos lahat ng material ay lalagyan ng note sa lahat na sa taas na nakalagay na ito ay para dito sa kurso lang na ito, para dito sa SEM at academic year na to pwedeng gamitin. So in that sense kasi iba kasi yung usapin doon sa soft copy at saka doon sa hard copy daw natin. So restricted din ang distribution natin doon.
Right. So I guess that's also connected to the comment of Sir Nathaniel Yang. No? So we really need clarity on the proper utilization of fair use. And yes, sir. So this is acknowledged po. And then, yes, Ma'am Pat, you want to say something?
Yeah, I don't know, baka it will occur later, but I just wanted to say that kasi yun na nga, if it is if there's a copyright owner and it's not and we are just trying to use it under terms of fair use, there are limitations to what we can do and how much we can use. So that is also partly the reason why, if we really cannot get permission to use something and we cannot use it, therefore, okay, unless we purchase the sufficient number of copies for all of our students to have them, the next best option, or possibly the best, depending on your point of view, is really to try and look for substitutes for these materials that are open access or open, if you can find open educational resources, then this headache goes away. Yun talaga yun. Kaya kung merong open textbook na available for your course, then if you can look for that, please. When we say open textbook, I mean literally they are labeled as such. They are textbooks designed for reuse and redistribution, and they carry Creative Commons licenses. Ganon din yung journal articles. There are many open access journals now where reputable authors are publishing also. So you might want to look there also. I mean, as for a substitute for something.
Yeah. Thank you, Ma'am Pat. And so that also is connected to the suggestion of Ma'am Monica Santos that, we come up with clear and simple guidelines on which readings materials can easily be uploaded, or maybe send a list of our readings to the library and they can identify which ones need permission. So so Sir Chito has said that they will facilitate this. And I guess Ma'am Agnes has a summary, di ba, Miss Agnes? Parang guide, di ba? So if we're going to use materials to avoid infringement as much as possible, we want, number one, it's in the public domain, as mentioned by Ma'am Pat. Number two, open OER, open educational resource. Number three, covered by the Creative Commons license. Number four, we ask permission. And then number five, pa fair use. No? So hopefully we get we get more clarity on the fair use para mas madali natin just to acknowledge yung comment ni Sir Nathaniel na how can we maximize fair use, especially since we're using it for educational purposes. Okay, Ma'am Alisa, you want to ask questions from the YouTube channel?
Oo, meron ditong mga tanong tungkol dun sa mga papers kunyari or articles na nakapost sa ResearchGate, Academia at saka sa PubMed. Yung ba raw ay considered legitimate links or expression of consent to copy? So pwede ba raw nilang isama yun sa kanilang course packs? Paano ba natin daw iti-treat ito?
I think there was a similar question na rin po dito kasi ngayong ResearchGate, sometimes the author would provide the work. Pero ang sagot po yata dun is that you can provide the link to the author's to the ResearchGate page of the researcher. But then again, you have to be careful kasi po, yun nga, baka naman yung sinishare pa niyang, although it's the author himself or herself sharing their own publication, it might be the case na hindi na siya yung owner ng work or hindi na siya yung may authority to reproduce the work. So just be careful lang on that. Pero when in doubt, just provide the link to the ResearchGate page.
Yeah.
Okay.
And you can write the author. Yung mga nagpa-publish sa ResearchGate, these are people who are alive. And in fact, di ba kasama dun sa, I mean, they are usually contactable. Parang nandun yung kanilang contact details. You can email them and ask. Di ba yung sinabi ni Agnes kung pwede ba o hindi. Kasi baka naman na hindi na sila ang dapat magpermiso or I don't know.
Okay. So siguro ito clarification lang kailangan from Joanna Lynn Cruz. If teaching is considered fair use, why do I need to ask permission from the publisher if I'm using one story from a book collection?
Okay. Kasi yun nga, ma'am. Since fair use is not it's just an exception, pero you still have to prove on 4 points. The 4 points, which is the purpose of the use, the nature of the work, the market potential or the value. May isa pa yung nakalimutan ko. It's the substantiality of the work. So it's just an exception, and although we are not really encouraging it, you can actually use it as an argument, pero since there are risks to it, we are not really encouraging it. So mas ano kami, even the IPOPhil, yung sinabi ni AVP Banji dun sa summary na triage na public domain, open resource, open license, ask permission. This is also the same guide na sinend sa amin ng IPOPhil. So even IPOPhil said to use fair use as a last resort. Kaya at the very least talaga, it's better to ask for permission. We're not discouraging naman na wag nyo gagawin yan kasi baka kasuhan kayo. It's just that we are being extra cautious in this time. Kasi to explain lang din, so yun nga, we're having these problems because dati textbooks talaga yung dinidistribute. Pero ngayon, everyone's relying on technology. So most likely, nag-evolve din yung on the producer side, yung mga nagpo-produce ng mga books, mga literary works, they're also relying on technology. And actually, it's easier now to detect who has copies of my work. So we're just asking everyone to be cautious. Kaya talagang ask for permission yung lagi naming at least the minimum that we want everyone to practice.
Okay. And there's a question also on Creative Commons. Are we allowed to secure Creative Commons licenses for our modules course packs so we can also share them as OERs? Or does the university have copyrights over them? This is from Julian Uria.
Sige po. Baka po OBPAA yung mas appropriate na mag-answer ng question.
Ma'am Pat, UPOU experience. Ma'am, nakamute po yata kayo.
Can you just repeat the question? Sorry, I got a little distracted.
Yeah, she's asking, are we allowed to secure Creative Commons licenses for our modules or course packs so we can also share them as OERs? Or does the university have copyrights over them?
Okay. Well, does the university have copyright? If we are going, on the one hand, you could say that the university cannot own copyright unless it is assigned by the author. Diba? Kasi we are a government entity. So unless, the university is a government entity. So unless authors, who is you and me, explicitly assign it to the university, then the university doesn't have a copyright over our work. However, the gray areas are, for example, work that we produce in the course of teaching. Kasi diba, when you think about it, the reason why we're here at having this conversation, and normally we really wouldn't, kasi normally if we just teach in the regular way, in the conventional way, hindi naman natin sinusulat ang ating, we don't produce a course pack as such, right? We don't write our lectures, we don't ganyan. So that's really the problem. Now, generally, for instance, in OU, we really use Creative Commons licenses. So all of the course materials that are produced for our courses, they are assigned CC license. Except that what we must remember about CC licenses is that you cannot, parang you have to take a look at the individual resources that you included and look at the licenses that they have. Kasi merong, di ba, there's a CC license where you're obliged to, ano na nga yung tawag doon? Yung,
Share alike. Share alike?
Share alike, sorry. Yeah, share alike. So, di ba, kung yung course pack mo ay sa resource-based course pack, you have to consider the licenses of each of the resources that are in that pack. And your license for the whole thing has to be compatible with the licenses of individual works within the pack.
Okay, thank you. AVP Elisa, meron ka pa. Go ka lang. Naka-mute.
Oo, ito, actually, ito medyo logistical. From Professor Maria Estela Rosa Lopez. We can work towards getting permission for all references, but this will delay all course packs if we wait for the response. Is there any way around this to meet the deadline?
Yeah. So, of course, we acknowledge that the faculty members are trying to meet a deadline, those who are developing course packs. So, in line with that, I think, yun nga, while waiting for the authority to include the works, you can maybe, ako, opinion ko lang, you can already include them in the course pack. I'm not sure kasi if final, pag sinubmit ba yung course pack, if it's final, baka the OVPAA can answer this. Pero I think while waiting for the express authority, you can already include it.
You want to add to that, Pampat?
Ako kasi talaga, kaya ako pinupush yung OER kasi I'm like, parang if you wait until the last minute to replace your material, you're dead, right? I mean, all your you'll have a really nightmare of a problem, a logistical issue, even in terms of distribution to students. So I would not, I mean, as much as possible, I would really say use OER, not copyrighted material, unless you have explicit permission, and unless you can really defend that it's fair use. Fair use, ang problema lang talaga kasi, as Agnes has explained, kasi kung sa regular naman na klase, we really do this all the time, right? I mean, like we take up a story or whatever, or take up an article, and the difference really there is that you are not naman the one actively distributing the material, and anyway, you won't be seen or detected, di ba? I mean, sino naman ang pupunta sa classroom mo para magpulis? Wala naman. Pero ito ngayon kasing we're online, medyo it's a bit of a problem. The visibility of it, and so, and also if we are aware, di ba? Like, you cannot say with a straight face that you didn't know that there are rules. So now, I mean, we're talking about this now, so it's a bit of a problem. So if you're compiling we are compiling our course packs now, parang can we, I know it's difficult, but can we make an extra effort to look for alternatives to the to the usual sources if we know we cannot we cannot get the permission in time, or even if we or the permission may not come at all even if we ask now. So
yeah, thank you, Ma'am Pat. No, so just to address some of the questions dito sa Q&A panel. So that has to do with the guidelines. Kasi kailan lalabas yung guidelines? Kasi nga sinasabi natin that the guidelines will provide more clarity about the fair use. Yes, Ma'am Pat, please.
Sorry.
Ma'am, na-mute kayo.
Okay, I forgot to add. Hindi naman ibig sabihin na hindi nyo nagagamitin. If you can, like if you really must use a textbook and it's supposed to be something that's it's commercially available, edi yun ang next line, di ba? You purchase. and you require your students to buy. It's a bit of a problem also because, of course, we wonder about whether all of our students can procure it, can acquire the book. But that's the other thing maybe that we might want to take a look at. Kasi kung magbibili ng in bulk, baka the university can negotiate lower prices.
Siguro ma'am, now we can ask Sir Chito if what the library can do related to this. But before Sir Chito before I ask Sir Chito to share, may I share also the efforts of the UP Press? So the UP Press has their books available through Lazada, Shopee, and I think they have an online bookstore. They have an updated catalog, and they have offered to actually give a huge discount of 50% off to their collection from the period September 7, 2010 to October 6. So if we are going to make use of the collections from or publications from UP Press and talagang kailangan siyang bilhin, then we can maybe purchase through that. Now, yung sinasabi ni Ma'am Pat na maybe pag bulk, kung talagang gagamitin ng buong class, can the library help in the bulk purchase of this, Sir Chito?
Yes, ma'am. Actually, we encourage yung bulk purchase. So, sa ngayon, ang practice namin is kino-consolidate yung mga requests from the different libraries, and then kung isang publisher lang yun, so isang purchase request lang yun. And then also, merong mga subscription consortia price siya. So much better kung mas marami. And we even collaborate with the other universities for possible consortia subscription or purchasing. So especially for ebooks, mas makakatipid tayo pag ganun and walang duplication of titles.
Yeah. Okay, sige. Thank you, Sir Chito. Baka, maybe we can also let our faculty know how the library can help dito sa bulk purchasing, no? If there's going to be a mechanism for this. Ma'am Pat?
Yeah, in terms lang of the logistics, kasi nga tumatakbo yung oras. I mean, some people in the chat box have reminded us na kailan ba natin matatapos tong course packs na to kung maghihingi pa ganyan. So, pwede po ba? By this time, dapat alam na natin kasi kung ano yung ating mga i-require sa mga estudyante natin. Kung hindi pa natin alam, talagang ang laki-laki ng problema natin, sobra. So, if you are using a textbook, can you then already say to your department chair, and di ba, kasi wala ka na talagang ibang option kundi yung textbook na yan. Dapat, we need to make decisions. And then they have to be ordered. Kasi I don't know, it takes a while, doesn't it? For these things, because we're now August. I'm so panicky. I'm sorry. My panic must be getting communicated in my voice. But I am extremely panicky by the fact that we are now August 10 and the start of class is September 10, and all things must be sent out before September 10.
Okay. Yes, Ma'am Pat. Okay, thank you. Thank you for that. I have to, sorry, kanina pa nakataas yung mga attendees natin sa, so I have 6 hands raised here. Maybe I can give some time to them, no? But first, before I call yung nasa raise hand, let me just acknowledge yung some questions sa Q&A panel, like for example, yun na nga, no? So some of the questions here has to do with the mechanism that the library will come up with to inform the faculty of which collections they can freely use to distribute to their student, and that the library will also help in asking permission for those that we have no permission to distribute. Now, may question on the Turnitin, Sir Chito, kasama yata to dun sa, dun sa subscription, primary subscription that we will get. Tama ba? Oo.
Yes, ma'am. I requested the Turnitin for the entire UP system. So, according to VP Bautista, it's for budget clearance.
And then there are some questions also related to, proper use of the library resources. I guess this is where now the webinar series of the University Library can come in. Sir Chito, maybe you want to give a short description of this.
Yes, we have a series of webinars scheduled on August 17 to 27. So we're inviting all faculty members. So exclusive yun for faculty members, but kung konti lang ang participants, we will open it to the other personnel of UP. And that includes information literacy lectures. No? So if you wish to be more familiar with the electronic resources that we subscribe to, the different platforms that we use, of course, remote access platforms that we can use when we are outside of the UP campus. And we will also be introducing our newest discovery service, which I developed recently. So nilaunch lang last July.
Okay, thank you, Sir Chito. So now may I recognize Ma'am Regina de Guzman. So ma'am, I've allowed you to talk. Please unmute yourself so that you can ask your question. Ma'am Regina de Guzman. Ma'am Regina. Okay. So habang wala si Ma'am Regina, how about si Ma'am Merly Esguera? Please unmute yourself. Ma'am Regina, Ma'am Merly. Okay, wala pa. So we go to Sir John Arvin Manaloto. Sir, unmute po para po ma-ask nyo yung question nyo live. Sir John Arvin Manaloto. Okay, mukhang, ulitin ko lang, no? Si Ma'am Merly, andyan po ba? Baka po nagsasalita kayo, kailangan nyo lang po mag-unmute. Si Ma'am Regina. Si Sir John Arvin Manaloto. Okay. Sir Nathaniel Yang. Sir, go ahead, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir. Go ahead po.
You can hear me now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. My question actually really has to do with allowing us to send digital copies of copyrighted material which UP already has access to. No? Remember that from the point of view of the College of Medicine, the course packs are being given to those who have no access, right? So they can't get on the internet to access what is electronically available. That's why we're trying to get it to them, right? So it's something that UP really has to work on.
Yes, sir. Apo, sir. So, we acknowledge that, sir. Yes, Ma'am Pat.
I'm not sure I understood, pero yung parang narinig ko, just to clarify po that the course pack is for all students. The difference is the mode of distribution. For those who have connectivity, then they access the course pack on our course sites on the LMS or the VLE. So that's online. And therefore, if it's a link to a database that we are subscribed to or a link to a journal that we as a university are subscribed to, so that's not a problem, diba? But for course packs that will be distributed offline, either through thumb drives or in print, then that's the one where we have a problem and we need to clarify whether we can reproduce.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for that, Ma'am Pat. Si Ma'am Chris Dancel. So I've allowed you to talk. If you can unmute yourself, please.
I just wanted to point out that when we have learning instructional materials from books, we are actually, as teachers, allowed to use them because the understanding is our students have the same books. So in situations when students are not required to buy the same books, when we share them in the classroom, they are allowed to take note of those figures and then find alternative figures in the books that they're using or maybe access the library copy. So technically, when we have instructional materials, we don't necessarily have the right to share them through our videos or in our LMS. Okay. The real for fair use, we must establish that the setting is a classroom setting. So if we send the materials as printed material, where is the classroom setting in that? And so that's why it's very difficult to share copyrighted materials, even if we have the instructional materials as slides. It's very difficult to share handouts through printed copies. Okay. When it comes to web more advanced textbooks, there are no alternatives. There are no open educational resources. And so for advanced courses, when open educational resources are not available, the teacher will have to do two things: either hold a live lecture or record the material. And once it's recorded, then we may have to put it in our LMS and make it strictly for students in the course. And that's why it's important that we have the LMS in the UP domain. The materials are shared through the UP domain. The students access them through the UP email addresses, because that means they are enrolled, and there you have the classroom setting. Okay, so the trick here is, when we share copyrighted materials for fair use, we must establish that there is a classroom setting. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Ma'am Chris. Thank you very much for sharing that one. You want to say something, Miss Agnes?
Ayun. So, buti na lang sinabi din ni Ma'am, no? So, it becomes very difficult kasi to distinguish in the digital setting kung ano nga ba yung classroom. So, although, ayan, we agree naman. I think the university, yung mission nga ng university is, yun nga, tatlong mission yan: teaching, research, and extension. So, we don't dismiss talaga yung fair use. It's just, there are certain precautions that we are taking. So, ayun.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am Pat, you wanted to add something?
Yeah, I was just gonna say that yeah, it can be argued, like sa OU, for instance, kasi nga our students are away from us. I mean, we don't share a physical classroom. So in a remote learning setting, the classroom is virtual, and so it's multi-site, diba? It's a multi-site classroom because there are as many sites as there are where, you know, your students, where they are. So that can be clarified, and some publishers naman allow it, as I said, no? Pagka sinabi mo sa kanila, they will allow the use as fair use and not charge you anything.
Ma'am, naka-mute po kayo.
Sorry, thank you. So may I now again call Ma'am Regina de Guzman. So you are allowed to talk. You just have to unmute yourself first. Last call, Ma'am. Okay, so baka wala na si Ma'am, o kaya baka mali lang yung raise hand niya. Si Sir John Arvin Manaloto. Sir John Arvin Manaloto. Okay, and then si Ma'am Angela Carion. Ma'am Angela. Ma'am Angela Carion. Okay, so mukhang wala na. And the last one na may nakataas ng kamay, si Ma'am Merly Esguera. Ma'am Merly, nagtaas po kayo ng kamay. Okay, sige. So that takes care of those who raised their hands sa attendee box. Time check lang po. It's 3:53, so we end at 4 p.m. So let me just go back to the Q&A, maybe ask one or two questions, and then I will ask AVP Alisa to also ask a question coming from the YouTube channel. Okay, so may question dito about when the guidelines will come out. So we do have draft guidelines already, and as I mentioned earlier, the questions, the discussions from this webinar will further inform that guideline so that we know we will input it in the discussion with our colleagues from the UP College of Law so that we can finalize it. So we hope to come out with the guidelines this week. So yun po yung target natin sa guidelines. And then meron ditong tanong about maybe just very quick, how do we determine if the resource is an OER, open educational resource?
It's Agnes, you
Yes,
want to?
Pat. Okay.
Okay. OER, a resource that is considered OER or open educational resource is a resource, it's a teaching and learning resource or an instructional material that carries an open license, a license that allows you to reuse it and redistribute and even remix, revise, even depending on the license. You have the 5 R's. No, you can retain a copy of it. You can reuse it. You can revise it in some instances and remix it, make it part of another collection or another work, and you can redistribute. So the terms of use will tell you if it has a CC license or whatever the terms of use state. Then so it's always important to take a look. What are the terms of use? No, so when you come up on a website, you look for the terms of use.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Pat. So may question dito si Sir J. Dalet. What if a UP student was able to download a copyrighted journal article from Sci-Hub, a website that provides free access to millions of research papers and books without regard to copyright, by bypassing publishers' paywalls in various ways, and reproduced or distributed that material to his or her classmates? Does UP have an obligation on this if the student got caught due to copyright infringement? What can UP do to prevent such problem?
I think related ito, ma'am, dun sa may isang question on if UP, pag na may lawsuit maybe against the faculty for infringement, related siya. Yun nga, kaya we're asking you to be cautious about this kasi you are faculty of the university, employees of the university. So I'm not sure, baka sila Cedric may sagot on this, no, yung with respect to the faculty. Pero dun sa student, actually hindi rin ako sure. Nirelate ko lang siya dun sa ano. Pero since student, yung student kasi hindi siya employee. Walang employer-employee relationship with the student. So I'm not sure if wala kasing legal dito eh. Pero baka si Cedric, he might be able to answer the question on this. If with respect to student, mako-cover ba siya ng university with respect to the faculty? Siya ba ay pwedeng matulungan ng university?
Sir Cedric, you want to answer? O si Sir Louis? Wala yata. Sir Cedric o si Miss Ina? From System TTBDO? Okay, anyway, siguro isama natin yon, Miss Agnes, no, sa discussion natin with our colleagues from the UP College of Law so that we can also include. Although, ayan, sumagot si Cedric sa chat. I think, sabi niya, this is more legal po dapat. This is more of an employee-employer relationship.
Add ko lang, ma'am, kasi since you're being asked by the university to develop these course packs, yun nga. Kaya rin we're giving you these guidelines kasi we want you to avoid it. Kasi nga, baka mamaya, especially if you upload the materials into the LMS of the university, so malamang kasi babagsak rin siya sa university. So please be cautious about that.
Okay, thank you. Ma'am Alisa, maybe 1 or 2 questions from the YouTube channel.
Medyo ito, siguro sa early on pa ito yung tungkol sa mga PowerPoints ng mga nagtuturo. So tinatanong ni Rowena Hinwino, when do you need to apply for copyright at the National Library for PowerPoint or video lecture? Siguro yung kung ano yung allowed. Siguro yun lang yung gusto nilang malaman.
Okay.
Sorry ma'am, pa-repeat po ng question. Medyo naputol po kasi.
Okay. Ang tinatanong lang, when do you need to apply for copyright at the National Library for PowerPoint or video lectures? Siguro ang pinaka-basic dito na tanong is, pwede bang i-apply for copyright ang PowerPoint natin o yung mga video lectures natin?
Yes, so yun, as long as it's original, na-mention naman na these are covered by, these are subject matter for copyright protection, pwede naman siya automatic yung protection ng copyright. Now, when will you register? Kailan siya magandang i-register? Actually, it's more of para lang may proof ka na ikaw yung original owner ng work. So it's not really required. Pero kung gusto mo ng certificate and you want to prove na this work has been copyrighted by you and may document na nagsasabi na you made this on this day and you publish it on this day, then yun yung instance na you would want to copyright. Pero in those cases, hindi naman talaga siya required.
Okay, tapos siguro paglilinaw lang tungkol sa UP Press. Meron kasing dalawang tanong tungkol sa paggamit ng mga material. So sabi ng isa, is it then safe to use books published by the UP Press? There won't be any copyright issues since it will be used for education. Tapos yung sabi ng isa, kung pwede ba raw niyang i-reproduce 4 cases from a UP Press book because the purpose is for education and I'm not reproducing the entire book. Are these allowable na mga actions?
Yeah, so let me just clarify. No? So the UP Press stand actually is, if we're going to make use of a book that they are publishing, they want us to buy that book. So they're actually not granting permission for it to be reproduced. So that is why the help that they are offering is to make this available at a huge discount. No, so kaya ibababa nila to 50% less so that if we have a class that will make use of their book, of a book that they publish, the students can buy this through Lazada, Shopee, or their online store at a discounted price. So they're going to make this discount available for a month beginning on September 7. So I hope I've clarified that one. So UP Press is not giving permission to reproduce the books that they publish. But in order to help us in the distribution, so if we're requiring it in our class, they will make it available for a huge discount. Okay. Sige. AVP Alisa, you have something?
Medyo merong isang mabigat din na actually mabigat pero actually meron naman tayong sagot dito kasi ito nga ang naging resulta din ng pag-uusap natin sa mga lawyers na mga IP lawyers, no. So meron kasing mga comments coming from Professor Joanna Lynn Cruz, Herbert Rizal Docena, from Christine Lao or Lao, na mga sinasabi nila bakit hindi daw nila maintindihan. I don't understand why we're not fighting for fair use. This is a political question more than a legal question. The country's state university should insist that interests of the public come before private individuals or for-profit publishing corporations. So ano ba raw ang sagot? Bakit hindi natin ini-invoke na lang ang fair use for education dito sa mga usaping to?
Yes. Yeah, so totoo yung sabi ni AVP Alisa, no? Actually, ang framing naman talaga din ng guidelines natin is basically yung sinabi ni Sir Nathaniel Yang kanina, how can we maximize fair use since we are an educational institution? And that is what we'd like to be able to capture now when we finally come out with the guidelines with the help of our colleagues from the UP College of Law.
I'd like to add, ma'am, that it's really, I also want to acknowledge, siguro political, I don't know if it's a strong term, but it's really a policy matter. And it will require dialogue between the among the rights holders, the user of the rights, tsaka yung government, of course. And that's why I think IPOPhil started the initiative with the publishers and the main lives. Pero siguro sa UP, it will also require some dialogue to guide us on this.
Okay. Thank you, Miss Agnes. I guess, yeah, so we're pressed for time. It's 4:05 p.m. So I think we can, so as I've said, no, I just want to again assure everyone that all the questions asked in the Q&A panel, all the comments here in the chat box in the Zoom room, and all the questions and comments in the YouTube channel are being documented. So we will all collate this and make it available in the discussion on the finalization of the guidelines on copyright that we hope to come out within the week. So with that, we'd like to thank our resource person, Miss Agnes Pantigue. Thank you, Agnes, for sharing this for sharing your expertise on copyright. And of course, we thank our panelists, Dr. Louis Season and the team from UP System TTBDO, Sir Cedric and Ma'am Ina, and Ma'am Pat Arito from UP as our UPOU resource person, and Sir Chito Angeles of the University Library. So just a few reminders. Kai, pwede ba natin? So of course, we thank also Ma'am Lisa for moderating the YouTube channel. So I think we have up to almost 850 in the YouTube channel. So puno din itong Zoom room. So we thank also our guests from DepEd who joined us in this webinar. Miss Kai will share some webinar updates. So we've been actually pushing information on this to the UP email addresses of our faculty. So we have one that is hosted by UP Diliman. This is preparing to teach STEM courses remotely. So they will also make this available to the CU system-wide faculty. This will be on August 13, 2 to 3:30 p.m. I think this has been forwarded already to the faculty. And then Sir Chito shared itong series of webinars hosted by the University Library. And I think this is an effort of the system-wide library offices. Tama ba, Sir Chito?
Diliman lang, ma'am.
Diliman. Okay. So Diliman is hosting this webinar series, and as he mentioned earlier, if there will be slots available, they will open this up to others. Baka, Sir Chito, we can explore the YouTube channel then for wider reach. And then we have the well-being seminar for faculty educators. This will be on August 24, 9 a.m. So for updates and details, you can visit the remote learning website of the UP system. So we've tried to put everything there, information about upcoming activities, as well as resources that the faculty can use. So may nagtanong kanina about the open educational resource, so we have put up some resources there as well in the remote learning website. So again, thank you all very much. Good afternoon to all of us. Maraming salamat. Ingat po kayo lahat. Thank you, Kai. Thank you, Dax and Rika, for helping in the management of the chat box and the Q&A panel. Thank you. Okay. So, sino